story that's shaking not just North America, but the entire globe. Canada has made a surprising move by proposing a 100% tariff on Tesla, a symbol of American electric cars. But it doesn't stop there. This decision is not only a direct response to Trump's tariffs, it could completely change the North American automotive industry. Let's analyze the numbers and the potential consequences of this trade war. Canada opens doors to EU electric cars, a major blow to the US auto industry. Canada and the US have maintained a close trade relationship for years, exchanging $50 billion in cars and metals, such as aluminum and steel, annually. However, under Donald Trump's protectionist trade policies, Canada finds itself in a tough position. Recently, a Canadian politician proposed imposing 100% tariffs on Tesla cars, which could shake not just the North American auto industry, but also have wide-ranging effects on the global market. Why Tesla? Tesla is not only one of the leading electric car brands in the US, but also a symbol of innovation in the global automotive industry. Tesla currently holds about 70% of the electric vehicle market in the US, and if Canada imposes a 100% tariff on Tesla, the price of each car could rise by $5,000 or more. With such high prices, Tesla's sales in Canada will be severely impacted as consumers will have to pay more, reducing demand and decreasing Tesla's competitiveness against other brands. This move could lead to many negative consequences, not just for Tesla. Investors in Tesla would also face stock value declines as Tesla's revenue and profits are impacted. Furthermore, this will complicate Tesla's expansion and investment strategies in North America, leading to concerns within the investment community and undermining confidence in Tesla's long-term sustainability and the electric vehicle industry in general. This trade war will not just disrupt the Canadian auto market, but could ripple out to the global scale. The electric vehicle industry, which has been growing rapidly, may slow down as other automakers and component manufacturers face rising production and consumption costs. This could hinder the growth of electric vehicles and create delays in green energy transition plans, directly affecting global efforts to reduce emissions and protect the environment. Tesla. In the eye of the storm, the economic consequences of the trade war. You're probably wondering, will a 100% tariff on Tesla really have a widespread impact on the US auto industry? The answer is yes. From concerning economic figures, the impact won't stop at Tesla. It will spread throughout the North American economy. Let's dive into the detailed consequences of this trade war. Tesla is not just an American brand, but a symbol of the global electric vehicle revolution. Tesla plans to sell over 1 million cars globally this year, with over 50,000 units sold in Canada annually. If Canada imposes a 100% tariff on these cars, the price of Tesla cars in Canada could increase by 50%. A Tesla Model 3, currently priced at about $40,000, would cost consumers up to $80,000 if the 100% tariff is applied, a price far beyond what most consumers can afford. However, the impact won't stop at Tesla. The North American auto industry, including giants like General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, will face major disruptions if a 100% tariff is imposed. Over 2 million cars are produced annually in Canada and exported to the US. A tariff crisis would shut down factories, pushing hundreds of thousands of workers out of jobs. The Canadian auto industry is worth about $50 billion annually, and if this trade war isn't resolved, it will cause significant damage not just to Canada, but to the entire North American economy. Canada's shocking response to Trump's trade policy. Why didn't the US see it coming? What happens when one of the United States' biggest trade partners decides to strike back? Donald Trump never saw this coming. Canada just made a bold move that caught the Trump administration off guard. US-Canada trade is worth over $800 billion annually, and any disruption could send shockwaves through the economy. But instead of backing down, Canada hit back hard, imposing retaliatory tariffs, expanding new markets, and strengthening ties with the European Union to protect its economic interests. So, what exactly happened? Why did Canada's response shock the US? And how will this impact the global economy? Trump's policies spark a trade war with Canada. Over the past month, the Trump administration has doubled down on aggressive trade policies, slapping heavy tariffs on imports from Canada and the European Union. The goal? Protect American industries. But instead, this move triggered an intense backlash from America's closest economic allies. Experts warn that these policies could disrupt vital supply chains, drive up fuel and consumer prices, and hurt not just Canada, but also American businesses and consumers. You may already feel the impact: higher fuel prices, increased production costs, and a growing risk of job losses. What's even more concerning? This could spiral into a dangerous cycle of economic retaliation between major economies. But why did the Trump administration take this gamble? And did they underestimate Canada's response? Canada doesn't back down, hits back hard. But Canada wasn't about to sit still. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded swiftly, calling the US tariffs completely unjustified and warning that they could hurt both nations. Immediately, Canada imposed retaliatory tariffs on US goods of equal value, targeting steel, aluminum, and key agricultural products such as beef, dairy, and fresh produce. But that was just the beginning. Canada also moved aggressively to diversify its trade partnerships, signing new agreements with Europe and Asian nations like Indonesia and Ecuador to reduce its dependence on the US market. This strategy not only strengthens Canada's economy, but also puts the US in a difficult position, losing a key trade partner right at its doorstep. And Canada wasn't stopping there. It had another major move in store, a long-term strategy that could challenge America's dominance in critical industries. Canada and EU form a strategic minerals alliance, a challenge to China. Beyond trade, Canada and the EU have joined forces in a crucial sector, securing the supply chain for strategic minerals. Lithium, cobalt, nickel. These are essential materials for electric vehicle batteries, renewable energy, and high-tech industries. Right now, China dominates this market, controlling over 90% of global supply. But now, Canada and the EU are building an independent supply chain, reducing reliance on Beijing. This move not only strengthens economic security, but also sends a clear warning to the US. Without a smart trade strategy, Washington could be left behind in the race for the energy industry of the future. But Trump's foreign policy concerns, Europe pushes for military independence. But trade is not the only concern. European leaders are increasingly worried about Donald Trump's unpredictable foreign policies. After the US held secret negotiations with Russia over Ukraine, without involving European allies, many nations felt sidelined. This has pushed the EU to strengthen its independent defense strategy, reducing reliance on NATO, which is led by the US. France has organized high-level meetings to expand military cooperation, strengthen defense supply chains, and increase defense spending. Europe and Canada are now shaping a new strategic landscape, one that is no longer dependent on Washington's decisions. The trade standoff between two neighboring countries, the US and Canada, has now extended beyond typical political issues. Canada's retaliatory actions against the US tariffs are not only immediately affecting the US farming sector, but they could also mark the beginning of a broader crisis in global agriculture. The situation began escalating when the US imposed a 25% tariff on various Canadian goods, including agricultural products such as grains, meat, and dairy. Canada didn't hold back in its response. It immediately retaliated by slapping tariffs on US goods like corn, soybeans, and beef. This has not only increased export costs for US farmers, but also forced them to face immense difficulties in finding alternative markets. Dairy industry. U.S. dairy farmers, who have long relied on Canada as a crucial trading partner, are now suffering significant losses. The new tariffs have made dairy exports to Canada prohibitively expensive, reducing demand and driving prices down. Many dairy farms in the U.S. are facing severe financial crisis. Grains and soybeans. For corn and soybean farmers, Canada has been one of the largest export markets. However, retaliatory tariffs have caused prices to plummet, and farmers are now stuck with unsold crops. This situation has led to massive financial losses for these farmers. Livestock industry. Cattle and pig. Farmers are also feeling the sting. The cost of exporting meat to Canada has skyrocketed, driving down demand. With prices in freefall and export costs rising, many livestock producers are scrambling to find new markets. This crisis is not just about immediate losses for farmers. It's going to have far-reaching consequences for the economy at the local, national, and even global levels. Global agricultural market. The standoff between the U.S. and Canada could create a significant gap in the global agricultural market, which countries like China, Mexico, and the EU may seize to increase exports, where the U.S. and Canada are losing ground. Technological innovation and strategic shifts. In the face of market uncertainty, many farmers are turning to precision agriculture to improve efficiency. However, these technologies require significant investment, and the financial pressure from tariffs is making it more difficult for farmers to invest. Reshaping the agricultural landscape. In the long run, this trade dispute could push for a restructuring of agricultural practices in both the U.S. and Canada. Many small, family-owned farms may be forced to sell to larger corporate farms, accelerating farm consolidation. Emotional and social toll. Beyond financial hardships, farmers are facing significant emotional distress. With the mounting financial pressures, the mental health of farmers is becoming an increasingly critical issue. This trade war between the U.S. and Canada may be a major setback for the U.S. farming industry, but it could also represent a turning point in global agricultural trade. While the immediate impacts are severe, there are also potential opportunities for farmers and countries to adapt to new markets and find innovative solutions. The future of agriculture will depend on how these sectors respond to the rapidly changing trade landscape. Did you know that the U.S. is heavily dependent on a massive source of energy from Canada? But what would happen if one day that energy door were closed? Imagine skyrocketing oil prices, factory shutdowns, and people facing sky-high energy bills. This isn't a distant scenario, but one that could happen if Canada decides to cut the energy it supplies to the U.S. Let's dive into the potential devastating impacts in today's video. U.S. dependence on Canadian energy. Little-known facts. The U.S. is the largest economy in the world, but one of the key factors keeping it stable is its reliance on energy imports from Canada. From oil, natural gas, hydroelectric power, to uranium, Canada plays an essential role in supplying energy to the U.S. Let's take a closer look at how the U.S. depends on Canada and why this relationship is so important. Canada is the largest oil supplier to the U.S., accounting for about 60% of U.S. oil imports. The U.S. also relies on Canadian natural gas to heat the northern regions and power its industries. This stable supply is crucial to maintaining the U.S. economy, especially during the cold winter months. Canada also provides hydroelectric power to states like New York and Vermont. Hydropower from areas like Quebec not only provides cheap electricity, but also plays a major role in the U.S.'s renewable energy strategy. If this hydroelectric supply were interrupted, these areas could face an energy crisis. Canada is also one of the largest suppliers of uranium to the U.S., which is essential for nuclear power plants. The U.S. is heavily reliant on energy from Canada, from oil, natural gas, and hydropower to uranium. This relationship not only supports the economy, but also ensures energy security for the U.S. However, if this supply is interrupted, the impact could be severe. So, what would happen if Canada really decided to cut off this vital energy supply? Let's explore this in the next part of the video. What happens if Canada stops supplying energy to the US? If Canada decides to cut its energy supply to the US, the consequences will be huge. Let's examine the major impacts we would face. First, the disruption of oil and gas from Canada will cause energy prices in the US to soar. This will push up the cost of living and production, especially during winter when states rely on natural gas for heating and electricity generation. Next, energy-intensive industries like steel and chemical production will face a crisis. High energy prices will force factories to reduce output or even shut down, impacting the economy. Additionally, the US will struggle to find stable and affordable energy sources. This could lead to shortages and put pressure on industries. Canada may redirect its energy exports to other markets like China or Europe. But this comes with significant infrastructure and cost challenges, making a quick transition impossible. So, if Canada cuts its energy supply, energy prices will rise, industries will suffer, and shortages will occur. The energy relationship between the US and Canada is truly crucial, and any disruption could lead to major consequences. The energy relationship between the US and Canada is incredibly important. If Canada cuts its energy supply, the consequences would be severe, from rising energy prices to industrial crises and supply shortages. This is an issue that both countries need to carefully consider, as it could have far-reaching effects on the economy and regional stability. Did you know? While the US is pushing hard to impose tariffs to protect its economy, its close allies are slowly backing away from their dependency on America? That's right. Canada, America's close neighbor, is making bold moves, cutting back on its reliance on the US and expanding its global partnerships. Could this be a sign of a major shift in the global economy? Canada is creating a trade revolution. What will the US lose? First, let's take a look at the recent trip by Canada's Minister of Trade, Mary Ang, to Europe. She had an important meeting with EU officials to strengthen the trade relationship between Canada and the European Union, as trade tensions between the US and its allies continue to rise. This is not just Canada looking for new trade partners, but a strategy to reduce its dependence on the US. With the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, trade between Canada and the EU has surged, reaching a record high of $100 billion in 2021. This shows that Canada is making strong progress in building an independent and sustainable trade relationship. But it doesn't stop at increasing trade with the EU. Canada is implementing an even bolder strategy, shifting its energy exports to Asia. Did you know, for decades, nearly 97% of Canada's oil has been exported to the US? However, with new strategic agreements signed with Japan and China, Canada is changing this picture. This means Canada is not only minimizing risks from US tariff policies, but also enhancing its position as a reliable energy supplier to the global market. But the most important question here is America losing its dominant position in the global trade game? America's protectionist policies, with tariffs imposed on trade partners, are not only pushing allied nations to seek new relationships, but also forcing the US to face a big shift. The US is confronting a powerful shift in the global supply chain, as allied nations no longer rely so heavily on America. So, can the US maintain its leadership in global trade? Or will it face economic isolation? The US is losing the trade game. What does this mean for the US economy? As allied nations seek new trade partners, the US is facing the risk of economic isolation in the global market. Countries like Canada, the EU, and various Asian nations are not only reducing their reliance on the US, but also strengthening their independent trade relationships. The tariffs imposed by the US are leading to an unintended consequence, shrinking market share for American businesses in international markets. while encouraging other countries to collaborate more closely. The US is slowly losing the economic influence it once had. Canada is not just diversifying its export markets, but is also focusing on sustainable development strategies, with mining projects supporting the green industry. Canada is building a sustainable and ethical growth strategy, creating huge opportunities in future industries like renewable energy and green technology. Canada is moving forward strong with its diversification and sustainability strategy, while the US could face significant challenges if it continues down the protectionist path. What do you think about Canada's transformation? And can the US adapt to these changes? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We look forward to hearing from you.